Hello, morning everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Managing a Seasonal Catalogue in StoreFeeder. This is the next of the webinars that we're putting on, showcasing how to get more out of StoreFeeder and look at some features that will help you with it, in this case, managing a seasonal catalogue. I'm Jack. Most of you will already know me. I've been at StoreFeeder now for 12 years. I started off working in support, became the onboarding manager, and then moved to the marketing side of the business. And today we're going to look at how you can manage a seasonal catalogue and sales within StoreFeeder. So this is the agenda for the webinar. Obviously the introduction, then we'll look at understanding seasonal complexity, the four-phase framework for it, best practice strategies, real seasonal scenarios, StoreFeeder features that will help you with that, best practices, some takeaways, and then we've got questions at the end. So feel free to add them to the chat as we go, and I can look at those when we get to it. So, introduction. So this session is basically about looking at and understanding how to manage seasonal stock complexity within StoreFeeder and how StoreFeeder can help you with that. And then obviously the takeaways from that will hopefully help you action it within your business. So understanding seasonal complexity. Products, so sharp demand spikes and short selling windows make time critical. Products can go from slow moving to bestsellers overnight and then back again just as fast. So the peaks are sharp, the windows are short, and mistakes can be expensive if you've ended up with more or less stock than you should have. So like I say, high risk of overstocking, overselling, and last minute listing changes. So overbuying tends to lead to leftover stock, markdowns and wasted margin, whereas underbuying will lead to missed sales, poor channel performance, and potentially frustrated customers. The seasonal products often have very fast lifestyles, so life cycles. So they must arrive, sell, and be cleared relatively quickly. They'll only have a few weeks of relevance, perhaps. So you're managing stock that must arrive on time, sell fast, and clear completely before the demand collapses for it. Success depends on planning every phase and not reacting mid-season. So timing matters more than anything in this sense. Seasonal success depends on listing at the right moment, having stock ready before the rush, and managing availability as demand changes. Too early and you could risk the listings being ignored, and too late and you've missed the window and no one's looking for what you're marketing now. So it's a seasonal catalog management isn't just about adding products, it's about predicting behavior, controlling the risk, and planning each stage of the product's journey, basically, to make sure that you've got it available when you need it. You've got enough available, and it's not then something you're having to deal with after the peak has passed. So the four-phase framework for this is the pre-season, so it's before the season starts, in season while you're selling the items, post-season, so that's as you tidy up the catalogue and look at what you've sold and got left from it, and then finally the continuous improvement part where you assess how you've done and then learn for the next one. So pre-season, this is where most success is probably won or lost. The more prepared your products, listings, stock levels, and warehouse are before the season begins, the fewer buyers you may have to fight later on. So load the data and the products in early, get those into StoreFeeder and set up, create the listings. You can save the listing without putting it live, so it will be in the system ready to go when you need it. Like we were saying there, prepare the listings ahead of launch. And it just saves you having to scramble to get them live as you're entering the season or entering peak. Forecast the stock using past performance if possible. So if you sold in this period before, then you can use that data, and we'll cover that again a bit more later, to sort of assess what you should be creating listings for and how much stock you should hopefully have for each of those items. So the in-season part, the actual execution of the plan. So you want to control availability and the listing visibility. So this may be through things like setting out stock threshold or an oversell on your listings in StoreFeeder, just to make sure that the items are visible or not visible as you need them. So you can adjust to real-time demand and keep selling what you've got, or at least fulfilling orders that are coming in for it. So customers that we've seen that have had success with this before are sort of watching these listings in, quite closely, tweaking the exposure to it, and then protecting the margin of the product. So yeah, they're forecasting stock using past performances. So they're like on top of it during the season to make sure that it's performing as they expect. And then the post season, so for example, if it was Christmas, that sort of can come and go quite quickly. So you want to make sure that you've cleared what stock you have in your warehouse, or at least sold the majority of it. And then what you've got left, or if you haven't got any left, you'll then want to find the products in StoreFeeder and discontinue or archive them, just to tidy your product catalog up. You don't want to have something seasonal like a Christmas tree perhaps sat in your products list the whole year round if you're not going to be selling any in June. So it just keeps it a bit easier, and you can see the wood for the trees, I suppose. And then review sales performance across channels using the data that will be in StoreFeeder from that. And then that leads us into the continuous improvement part. So the biggest advantage of structured seasonal management, every year becomes easier. You learn from what you sold and what didn't sell, and you can see why it didn't. So one thing you might have thought would do well, it didn't. You know that. You perhaps either order less of it or completely skip using it or selling it in the next season cycle. So you refine it with so you refine your buying and pricing strategies, and then build repeatable processes, sort of a playbook for it, which means that each time you come into a seasonal thing, not necessarily Christmas, but it could be the summer, or it could be sort of more specific seasons, that you've got an easy way of doing it each time, and it just gets easier for you as you move forward. So recurring seasonal ranges, these should become more efficient each year, and the products repeated as these seasons that are repeated annually. So for example, Christmas, Halloween, summer ranges, if that's something that your business deals with, and you'll be able to plan a life cycle for each of these. So when products are entered, how long you need to give before you're putting into the system, when you want to go live with them, and then when you want to end the listings and move on to the next one. You can also use last year's data to guide ordering, pricing, and launch timing. And then archive these at the end for a faster setup next season. The products will still be there, so you can just bring them back as you need them, as opposed to having to create a product for them each time or delete them out of the system and lose all the data that's associated with them as well, because that will be just as helpful. We've got high risk seasonal experiments. This is another form of sort of seasonal selling that we've got customers that do. So they'll be perhaps do like a one-off event or a limited edition run. We've got customers who'll sell things like cosmetics, and they'll have like a huge spike when a particular line is launched, and they've sort of prepared for that as the season for it. So that'll all come out. They'll have a huge demand. Everything will have been set up, managed. They'll know exactly how much they need and how much they've got to sell, and it's all sort of managed in time. But there is still the risk that it's that they've got to sell it all. And then you can start small with controlled stock exposure and limited inventory to begin with, just to, if you are actually running this sort of for the first time, you just go in and make sure that it's not, you're not exposing it too much, and then iterate quickly on what's working based on early performance data. So again, it might be that something didn't work and something did that you weren't expecting, so you just order one more of the other and not worry about the first one so much. And then obviously have a predefined exit strategy for anything that's underperforming. So you just be like, well, it gets to a point here, and we'll just sort of slowly start to wind this one down. We've got event-driven peaks. So they're fixed dates, but with unknown or variable demand. So an example would be Valentine's Day, back to school, or the World Cup next year. Again, it's you want to be early enough to get in on them, but you don't want to be too late to sort of lose the performance of them. But as we basically mentioned here, so listings must go live early enough to be available when demand starts, but not too early as to be ignored. So you don't want to be putting back to school stuff up at the end of the school year, for example, because no one's going to be thinking of it at that point. And with this one, actually, consider creating kit products for some ranges. It's just an easier way of perhaps getting more from your products, more listings available and more ways for customers to buy them. And with this one, you'll see a sharp drop off of demand once the event ends, as everyone stops thinking about it or searching for it. And then this one, an overstocked seasonal fail. So this is when a seasonal line underperforms or arrives too late for demand. It usually comes from perhaps overly optimistic buying or late shipments from a supplier, potentially. The goal isn't to avoid failure entirely, it's to learn, adjust, and not make the same mistakes twice. So it's not a terrible thing if it happens, I suppose, but it's just good to have that information and that data so you can learn from it. Yeah, there we go, and avoid repeating the same mistakes. So looking at what other StoreFeeder customers have done and what they've done well, they plan very earlier than I was expecting when I looked at it, and not react late to it. So the products are all in, the listings are all prepared weeks and in some cases months before what they're going to do. The stock's already ordered, already booked into the warehouse. They know where it is, and it's good to go as soon as they decide to turn the go into the season or perhaps turn the sale on, for example. They use the data in StoreFeeder. They don't just guess. So we'll look at the sort of reports and the forecasting that StoreFeeder's got later on, but they'll use that data in like quite in great detail to see exactly what they need to get, how much they need to get, when they need to put it live, when people were looking for particular items. And then they'll manage the entire life cycle through, so they won't just sort of fire and forget. It will be, they'll launch it, watch it, manage the listings as they go to make sure they're performing as they're expecting them to, and they're intent and they want to see, and then have clear rules for sorting out products that perhaps didn't work as well, or for discontinuing and archiving. They also iterate and learn, improve each season. So they'll spend a lot of time going through the data, and this is why we sort of got the insights and reporting the StoreFeeder version 3 reporting stuff in there, because it's so sort of asked for by so many of our customers. The data's in the system and they want to get access to it and review it as easily as possible. So here are some StoreFeeder features that customers have been using to sort of help with this. FIFO and expiry dates. So this basically perfect for products with use by dates, or products that you want to, if you've got, I don't know, you've bought a load of stuff and some of it's been sat in the warehouse for a year, but you've got newer stock coming in and you want to use that, you can use FIFO, so first in, first out, to make sure that the older stock is cleared first. And then expiry dates are obviously perfect for products with like a short shelf life, for example. So you want to make sure that the oldest product is always used first when picking, and you can use it to track batches of products as well. So this is found on the stock location. So you book a product into the stock location, set it, give it an expiry date, give it a batch number, and StoreFeeder will know to go to that one first. If there's multiple locations of the same product, it'll always send you to the oldest one first when you're picking, to make sure that that's the one that goes out of the door. There is a knowledge base on this that goes through it in a lot more detail than I will in the webinar, if that's something you want to have a look at. Discontinued and archive products. This is, a lot of people do use this, but more people didn't than I was expecting, basically. So I thought I'd put it into the webinar. It just means that you can hide products that you're not selling anymore, or intend to revive later on or another point in the year, but not delete and completely lose the data from StoreFeeder, because if you delete the product, you'll lose the sales history, you'll lose orders that are associated, well, not the orders, but the information from the orders that's associated to them. And it's just a tidier way of keeping your product catalog in the system, but without actually losing anything and having information that you can report against later on. And that's just found on the product, 2 buttons in the top right, super easy. One thing I will say with this though, you can't archive or discontinue a product that's got stock against it. So it's not then got a live active listing. You need to have a product that's got no stock, or transfer the stock away from it or something in order for it to archive. Requisitions, definitely touched on this in previous webinars, but it is relevant for this. Because you can set your purchase order mode for it to be last 7 days, you can in theory use it to do almost just-in-time ordering and base that completely off your sales history over a short period. So you set the purchase order mode to last 7 days on the supplier, and then when you go and create the requisition, it will be using that data to base what you need to order, not something over a longer period or just items that are have been sold and you're trying to fulfill orders for. It's okay, this seems to be the trend and we want to order against that. And then now we'll get into the reports that I was talking about. So the first one we've got here is the so there's multiple reports for this information. And obviously it works in the same way. You set your filters to cover the time and periods that you're interested in. So this is the weekly product sales analysis report. So just zoom in a bit. Actually, I'm going to jump back a slide. So this report provides a week-by-week view of product sales, showing your key metrics, so quantity sold, turnover, average order value, and inventory levels. And you can see that over a short period of a week. So you can say, I don't know, at the start of the next week or at the end of the previous week, export it, review it, see where you're at with it, and use that sort of almost live information to iterate on what you're doing. It's super helpful for identifying products with growing or declining sales momentum over a really short period of time. So during like a seasonal, during a season, you can see, well, let's say we're at Christmas at the minute, so you'll be able to see exactly what was selling really well last week and go, well, yeah, we've still got a week to go of orders coming in, so we'll try and get some more of those and see if the momentum keeps up. It's really useful for people who are stock and demand planners, so they can order the stock in the correct information, and commercial teams who need to see the impact of the sales on a week-to-week basis. And then we've got a few of the other sales and revenue reports here. You can see everyone's got access to these reports, so they're just in the system and they'll have all your data against it. And now we'll have a quick look at another report, which is the seasonal sales reports. This is more of a instead of the previous one we looked at just being the week, this will encompass a whole season. So it helps you can actually see at the end of it when you're reviewing and going through what you've sold, you'll be able to uncover trends and assess timing and impact of demand spikes. So you'll be able to see exactly when things sold and why, in a way. So when it comes to the next one, you're going, okay, so Christmas trees started picking up at the end of November in a massive way. So I need to make sure that I've got all of my listings for those in, sorted, and ready to go for that peak. And then you'd probably see them drop off, and you know that, okay, so by the 22nd, for example, it's almost done, and I can start to think about what's going on in the new year. So this works with individual lines or the whole product catalog. So obviously you'd search for, I was really interested in this one SKU. I want to know that everything that's within this, within what I've got as my catalog for this season. And then this is the, so this is the grid you've got for it. So it's quite easy to use, and it will fill the information here and you can export it from that. But we've also got the insights information for it, so you can turn this into a graph. So in this example, you can compare time periods visually over what SKUs are selling well and when. So this one, I can't think what the product was that we looked at, but basically you can see that over the same time period, you've got this one. So this one sold incredibly well in October, but by November it wasn't selling at all. So you can easily compare this visually, export the information, go through it, and work out your trends for that season to bring into the next one. So the wealth of data in StoreFeeder, and it's so important to use it, really. So best practices: prepare your catalog data early, make sure everything's in, and they can sit in StoreFeeder for as long as they need to. You can create the listings and save without uploading, like I mentioned, so that's all in the system. Applying stock levels with data rather than guesswork. This is what I was just sort of looking at. If you've got the information to say, well, I'm selling this amount here, then you order the stock to match that. You don't just go, well, I think this will be cool, I'll get some of that. Avoiding overstock, stock outs, and rush listings changes. So again, that's making sure that the warehouse has got the correct stock in it and is replenished to the point it needs to be. Structured product management: archive what you don't need when you don't need it, so you can bring it back when you need to, and regularly edit and review your listings to make sure that your inventory modifiers like oversell or out of stock threshold are correct for the item, and you're not leaving stock sat around that doesn't need to be. And regularly reviewing the reporting tools. So we've got that week-to-week report. You want to use that, and then obviously at the end of the season, export it all, look at it, go through your data, and track and review what's happened to prepare you and get your playbook ready for the next one. So key takeaways: 4-phase framework, just knowing where you are in each one of them and then reviewing at the end. Continuous improvement, so adaptable workflows, easy to follow guidance. So it's not just you're not just going, well, that was all right, on to the next one. You're not actually thinking about the previous season. Plan early, refine and manage it, make the database decisions. And then cool. So were there any questions in the chat? Have a look. No, I don't think there were any. Has anyone got any questions while we're here? Nope. Cool. There will be a recording of this uploaded to YouTube in the next couple of weeks, I expect. So if you do have anything that you want to go over, you can be able to see it again. Or if you do get any questions from that, get in touch with the support team, and they'll be able to help you out. So yeah, we'll probably be having the next webinar in January now, I'd expect. So yeah, look out for your invite for that. And get in touch if you've got any questions. Yeah, thank you. Have a great Christmas and a good New Year.